Ahoy there, Lib Dems! You lot are like the last Japanese soldier on the island. You just can't let Brexit go, can you? Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the jacksy by giving this video a big fat like. Now, with just 24 days to go to Brexit Day, the Liberal Democrats are still trying to find and engineer ways to stymie the result of the biggest exercise of democracy in UK political history. And the latest wheeze from the Lib Dem acting leader Ed Davey is to try and get an investigation started into the actual 2016 EU referendum itself, as well as the result, over 3.5 years since the event. So credit where credit is due. The Liberal Democrats continue to prove how adept they are at finding the most unpopular ideas to put before voters and then making them party policy. And to top it all, they appear to be doubling down on the very thing that the voters roundly rejected them for less than a month ago. They are still trying to put a skewer into Brexit. How sad is that? And what a great strategy for a party to try and relaunch itself on. Including the referendum itself, every brush they've had with the UK electorate has hacked another lump out of the pro-EU campaign. So you do have to ask, how many limbs has the Monty Python pro-EU Black Knight got left as it vainly attempts to keep blocking the road to Brexit? But this inquiry would only come about if the amendment that Ed Davey has tabled to the Withdrawal Agreement Bill gets selected by the new Speaker Lindsay Hoyle for debate and voting on, and if the majority of MPs vote for it, and it eventually goes on to make up part of the eventual Act of Parliament. So to put it bluntly, a highly unlikely outcome. But the very fact that the irrelevant Lib Dems have bothered to table such an amendment shows how absolutely ridiculous that party has become. In fact, the Lib Dems are currently about as useful to UK politics as a Zimmer frame is to a certain person called Harvey. Now, this proposed clause would require the government to establish a statutory public inquiry into the events and decisions leading up to Brexit. And that clause says that the terms of reference for that inquiry are to look into A. The government's decision to hold a referendum on EU membership in 2016. B. The financing and conduct of campaigners in the 2016 referendum. C. The government's decision to invoke Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union in March 2017. D. The government's strategy and approach to negotiating the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the EU. E. The government's decision to also withdraw the United Kingdom from the European Atomic Energy Community, Euratom. F. The government's decision to also end free movement of persons between the United Kingdom and the European Economic Area. And G. The government's decision not to hold a referendum on the terms of the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the European Union. So let's have a look at this ludicrous list, shall we? The government's decision to hold a referendum on EU membership in 2016. The government didn't just decide to do this, the whole of Parliament did via the EU Referendum Act 2015. The referendum bill was put forward by the government, but Parliament had to make it law in order to hold the referendum. Just because the government held the majority of MPs does not take away the responsibility from Parliament as a body. The financing and conduct of campaigners in the 2016 referendum. There is already a statutory body set up to deal with this issue, and that body, the Electoral Commission, has already gone over this, as people like Darren Grimes will attest to. raking over the coals looking for a chance to inflict double jeopardy on the Brexiteers is a pointless exercise. The government's decision to invoke Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union in March 2017. Now, it was the electorate who, by their voting decision on the 23rd of June 2016, instructed the government to invoke Article 50. Then, to stop the government using its prerogative powers to write and send the Article 50 letter, Gina Miller won a court case that forced the government to get an Act of Parliament through, allowing them to do so, the European Union Notification of Withdrawal Act 2017. The only real decision the government had to make was the date on which to send the letter, and the Act of Parliament gave them the power to do just that. The government's strategy and approach to negotiating the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the EU. This bit, one assumes, would come under the government's prerogative powers to conduct foreign affairs. There will be lessons to learn here, but there should surely already be well-developed structures for review in the Foreign Office. Has any such procedure been already initiated? The government's decision to also withdraw the United Kingdom from the European Atomic Energy Community. Although it is a separate legal entity to the European Union, Euratom is tied up with it, and no one is a member of Euratom who is not also a member of the EU. And retaining our membership of Euratom would keep us under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice in certain areas, so it makes total sense to withdraw from Euratom too. It will also give the UK an incentive to stand on its own 2 feet where the manufacture of medical isotopes is concerned, with the added benefit of not being forced to transport radioactive materials with extremely limited shelf lives and tight timescales many miles over land, sea and air. I also presume that Parliament could have voted against this via an amendment to a bill at some stage or other in the last 3.5 years. The government's decision to also end free movement of persons between the United Kingdom and the European Economic Area. Give it a rest. That was one of the main drivers for our voting to leave the EU in the first place. And finally, the government's decision not to hold a referendum on the terms of the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the European Union. Now, how many chances did the previous Parliament get to try and foist that one on us via the helpful antics of the then Speaker John Bercow? Cue boos and hisses. Parliament was given ample opportunity to force a second referendum, but decided against it. There you go. I might have just saved the government spending a fortune and many years on a pointless inquiry. As far as I can make out, this pitch for an inquiry is just Lib Dem desperation to keep the Brexit debate going in the hope of 1. Stoking up the rejoin campaign once they've been forced to start it, and 2. Providing ammunition to hold a rejoin the EU referendum at some stage in the future. It's a desperate attempt to keep the battle going. Actually, it's worse than that. It's just a sad excuse of a party doing sad things. But I personally feel that the Lib Dems' time would be much better spent on a different inquiry. An inquiry into why their revoke the Article 50 letter and stay in the EU policy caused them to tank in the general election. Although I do reckon that 99% of people out there could tell the Lib Dems exactly why that was, without the need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on an investigation. But on top of this one, the Lib Dems have also put forward a load of other amendments which, if taken as a whole, just about replicates full UK membership of the European Union. Ridiculous. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get notifications. and please tell us all what you think of the Lib Dems by sharing and commenting. And thank you for watching.